This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air for the first time with Kim Sorrelle. And this is our first talk with her. And I want to let people know before we start, we are on Newsly. We're a featured podcast on Newsly platform. You can get on iOS or Android. Use coupon code GHOST and you get 1 month free premium subscription. Within an hour, we'll be on that platform so you can listen to us. You can stop scrolling and start listening. So, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, it's always great to do podcasting. It's something I've been doing for a while, and it's just fun to, especially in this world with the COVID. It's been a really cool way to, still be in my in my lab here and talk to people all over the world. So I appreciate being able to talk to you.
Yeah, well, I love meeting new people and I've been really excited to meet you. So it is nice. And it is funny, isn't it? In this post-COVID-ish world where people have been working more and more from home that you kind of miss the human connection sometimes.
Yeah, one of the goals for our podcast is eventually to be able to be in the city that we interview people in. For musicians, that's been like our goal as a podcaster. We started with is if we talk to a band in Tokyo, we actually go to Tokyo and we watch them prepare for a show or do a recording. And that's the pitch we have to some of our sponsors to try to do that in the future, to actually be able to use TV stations or radio stations and have face to face type of interviews. But for now, we've been doing this for a while online, and it works. It's a different feeling. So eventually we'll get to that point.
Yeah, that would be so cool to do.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Then I could get rid of my day job.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. But yeah, so you're an author, you're the director of a humanitarian organization, and a speaker. Your first book, "Cry Until You Laugh," is about your husband's battle with cancer. Your second book, "Love Is," chronicled your quest to figure out the meaning of love. And so, where did you want to start? Do you want to start with your director role or your author role, or kind of figure out where you want to start? How you got into writing is a
Yeah,
good start.
we can start there, right? So, a few years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I went to the bookstore. It's the first thing I did, and I saw these books that were either medical or depressing, and I thought, I want to know what I'm going to go through. I want to know how it feels. What is it like? Are there decisions to make? What do I have to do? And so I started writing, sort of as a way to update family and friends. I'm going to the doctor tomorrow, kind of thing. But it was so much more than that. And before I knew it, there were about 5,000 people reading my emails as I was sending them. And so as I was writing, 4 months into my diagnosis, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away
Oh,
6 weeks
wow.
later. So I was writing during all of that time. I wrote for a little over a year. And Cry Until You Laugh is the name of the book. It's something I think you need to do because we all have icky things. They happen in life, and it's okay to cry. But then sometimes we need permission to laugh again. And you need to. It's okay to laugh again.
Yeah, it's a heavy thing, I disclosed, when I was 27, I had a level 3 sarcoma, and I was able to get past it. And that was something as a 27-year-old, I was not ready to face that at all. But it happens when it happens. You got to deal with it. But it really did change my life. It made me think about things, and I started really figuring out what was important. And from there, I actually met my wife, and then I wasn't afraid of things anymore. I was willing to do things. I actually we lived in Japan for 2 years. I did stuff because the cancer kind of opened up things where I was putting glass ceilings on myself, and I started saying, well, I'm not going to be afraid to do things that I always wanted to do. Started doing my music, started becoming a producer, started doing podcasting, and I was like painfully shy when I was like younger. And so the old me and the post cancer me is like people are like, wow, you're just totally different.
Well, it does that to you though. I mean, that's a tough word to hear always, cancer, no matter what the cancer is attached to. And it does change your perspective. And I think it's good that it changes your perspective because you value life more. You realize that life isn't as long always as you think it's going to be, or it's not going to be as easy as you hope it's going to be. And so to change your perspective is okay. But it'd be nice if you could change your perspective without going through the cancer.
Yeah, I think it's the crucible. People go through crucibles, they go through all kinds of emotional trauma or different things that happen to people. Cancer is very personal because it's like any kind of sickness, it directly affects you individually. But then people can go through all kinds of issues and crises that can kind of make the person or break the person, or they learn from it or they don't learn from it. And so I think it's what's interesting about is creative people, they turn it into a book, they turn it into a song, they turn it into a painting. And that's what I've always been my drive as a podcaster is to kind of get behind the people who actually are able to take their feelings and take their experiences and actually convey them to other people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's true. And I think for creatives, it's therapeutic to do it through song, do it through music of whatever kind, to write poetry, whatever it is, to get some of it out and on paper or out into the air, I think is pretty healing.
So is that something you all like to do, right? Or is that something that you found like later in life? Had you always been like writing diaries or writing notes or writing articles or books or short stories? Is that something you would always were doing or?
Yeah, I've always liked to write, always loved writing, and I hadn't written any books, but I wrote articles and wrote newsletters and wrote, different kinds of whatever, content for whatever. But
Mhm,
so I hadn't really even thought about writing a book. And when I started, I wasn't doing it to write a book. I was doing
mhm.
it to help people to say, okay, you might be able to expect this, whatever. And certainly there's fun in the book, it's hopefully it's funny along the way too, because you got to be able to enjoy life's moments. But like I had no idea that it was going to turn into a book, but I
Wow.
was
So
kind of pushed into it.
how did you start to compile it? Were you just like a diary, or you just writing it and then you
Well,
started to see that it could fit a book?
Well, actually, I sent it out in email form. I emailed what I wrote, and I wrote when I felt like it. Like there wasn't
Oh, okay.
necessarily a pattern to it. And at the end, after I stopped writing, during the time, people were saying to me, "Oh my gosh, this needs to be a book. This needs to be a book." And I'm
Oh,
thinking,
so
"Yeah,
that's
you're
how
my friends. That's what you're thinking." But I had a friend who was in the printing business who said,
oh, they helped you.
this needs to be a book. And so she kind of took care of it all. And then, so I self published, and then a publisher picked it up
Wow.
after that. So,
So
yeah.
did your friend kinda help you with, like, the structure of how the book should be put together? And would she start compiling things and saying, "Hey, this is how you actually do it." Did you kinda
Well,
work with?
really, it was just it's what I wrote,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was
Took what you
in
wrote.
chronological order. It was by
Mm,
date, and so it just fit in
kinda
just like
worked.
that.
This worked.
Yeah,
So you were able to just take it from the emails and put it into a structure and then publish it.
right.
That's so when you went to your second book, did you continue that type of structure, or did you actually go at it from, like, a book type of form? Traditional
Well,
kinda structure?
yeah, it was more of a book kind of a form because I wanted to write it. I wanted to do it, whether anybody ever read it or not. I needed to do it for me.
Mhm,
But losing my husband made me question the real meaning of love. And so
mhm,
I decided I was going to figure it out. And I dedicated a year. It actually took a little longer than a year, quite frankly, but
mhm.
I dedicated a year to figuring out the true meaning of love. And most of the time I was in Haiti, and it was sort
Wow.
of this eat, pray, love experience. I mean, it was crazy. I was chased by a motorcycle gang. I got lost on a mile-high mountain with a medical student in the dark. I mean, just
Did
crazy
you
stuff
choose
happened.
did you choose to go to Haiti to write it, or you just was something that you were gonna do anyway?
After I was ready to go back to work physically, several months after my husband passed away and I was ready to go back to work, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I had businesses. I'm an entrepreneur and I was in
Mm,
the nonprofit world, but I stepped down from that because of my cancer. And so I thought I'd take it slow. And I took a job as a part time bookkeeper for a
mm.
nonprofit that my father and I had started 10 years before then. And this man was running it. And so January 1st of that year, I started part time. And 12 days later, there was an earthquake in Haiti that killed 200,000 people.
Oh, that big one, yeah.
Yes. So I went from part-time bookkeeper to 24/7. And within a couple weeks, I was in Haiti. And then I spent at least part of every month in Haiti for the next several years after that. So it made sense to be on this quest in
So
Haiti.
you're doing humanitarian work at the same time you were doing your job? Or
I I did, yes. As I was looking for love, I was still working, still doing what we do, uh, and and writing at the same time, figuring stuff out at the same time. I
um,
use
it
this, yeah.
mhm.
I was just gonna
Well, it
say I
just
use.
seems yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I used a 2,000-year-old poem that you hear at
Oh,
a lot
wow.
of weddings. Love is
Oh,
patient, love
wow.
is kind, right? And
Mhm.
decided I would take one word a month and figure out what is love that is patient, what is love that is kind. So as I was doing the humanitarian work, I was looking constantly on the lookout, love is patient, love is patient. What does it mean? And trying to figure it out. And it took me till the end of every month to get hit over the head with something to go,
Yeah.
now I get it. I finally understand.
But being in the middle of a crisis where, like, people probably lost everything, and then people find out, like, love is not all these material things, not all these things that you acquire or, we're trying to, your car and your clothes and your tea, all that stuff. It's like it's your family. It's your spouse. It's like it's that connection to other people. And I guess when you're in this crisis, like what happened in that earthquake, you could probably see it like in your face all the time. Those kind of human stories that might kind of reverberate. Did that help, like, kind of define it on top of what had happened to you already?
I think so. I mean, I think it really shaped it. One thing that I learned is that service is very healing. When you get outside yourself and help other people, like that's a great healer for grief. And so I didn't know going in, but found out along the way. But I was a couple years into helping, with relief after the earthquake before I started the year of living love, of searching for
Mm.
love. And because at first it was chaos. I mean, it was so difficult in Haiti. People didn't know where to turn. They were.
Yeah, everything was probably down. Like the services were all down, right? Everything was like in a really bad crisis situation for a while. At least I remember the news. I was reading about it, um, or seeing it on TV. So that's really, I think that's a crucible to go through, to actually be in that and actually help people. You actually be in there and actually do something. It does kind of take you when you go and you give service, any kind of service to humanity. I think it does make you mindful of all the, because a lot of times in kind of our society, we everything's kind of centered on the individual. It's all about, like, oh, you got to make that money, you got to do this, you got to do that,
Mhm.
and keeping up with the Joneses, and that kind of makes you, like, take a step back and look at other things.
Right. I agree. Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. The average person makes less than $2 a day. If you can imagine that. But yet the cost of living is much higher there than it is here. The cost of a loaf of bread, the cost of a gallon of milk, much higher than it is here. And so it's crazy how people unfortunately have to live. It's this beautiful country. People are
Hmm.
absolutely wonderful, but they're living in some of the worst conditions in the world.
Yeah, it's a shame when there's so much wealth on the planet that things are so tilted. and even more so we can get into things. But yeah, the way things have been going lately, it just even across the whole planet is it tends to be the 1% taking everything, and it's getting harder to actually share it. And it's been kind of elevated that that's the way you should be. And I think people need to kind of step back from that and say, really, is that what you should be chasing? Or you should be chasing something that elevates your heart, your soul, and your mind. Isn't like having to have the Bentley and the
Right.
mega mansion and everybody like, in my industry, everybody's always like showing off. Like a lot of the people today, it's not we're not doing like what Dylan did, not doing what Neil Young did, and they became millionaires, but at least they were saying, social things that went beyond just like I'm the best and I got all this money. I just think people need to get outside themselves and try to do something
I
beyond that.
think I agree. I mean, and for yourself, I mean, to go and serve whatever that means, helping somebody with the groceries, wha- and get them to their car, help somebody across the street. I mean, it doesn't matter, but to be looking for opportunities to help people, I think is a great way to live. And, I think it's so much we lack education on things because we're such consumers, and so we're not happy with one t-shirt or five t-shirts in our closet. We want 20, we want 30, we want 40. And so we go to Walmart and we want a great price for a package of five t-shirts, right? We want this great price.
Mhm.
Well, meanwhile, they're being made in places like Haiti,
Yeah,
where
somebody
they for a
or choose someone
factory,
for 10 cents or something.
yeah, for a factory job, the minimum wage in Haiti, I believe, is $7 a day for a factory
It's just
job. So it's long hours working in a factory, making t-shirts so that we can have five of them instead of one of them at that same price.
yeah, and
Whereas,
also this I mean, the profitability of the companies that they basically devalue the work that makes their product, right? And then they value paying the shareholder. And
right,
you gotta start to wonder in a planet where people need to eat and people need healthcare, is it really that's the primary focus? Is that what you should be focused on? And I think that's where you really have to have education because like people have to understand we're kind of continuing this focus because we're thinking that's good, right? And so people have to start to make an argument like, well, maybe you should try to be a little bit more fair to the people actually working.
right. Right. Like we need to rise up and demand it.
Yeah,
I think people don't realize we're used to things on sale. We're used to great prices on things, but we don't think about, well, where does it come from? And how
yeah.
can they do it so cheaply? Like, how can we only pay $10 for five t-shirts? How is that possible?
Well, it's
You
kind of like
can't
that
make
Wall
those at
Street.
home.
It's the Wall Street movie. It's like greed is good. Like as long as you get this mentality that greed is good, that they're making crazy profit, making 1,000% profit, and having very low cost, right?
Mm,
Is how the companies want to build. Yeah, not to put it down, but it's like Apple. They use a lot of labor that's kind of sketchy. Yeah, in China, it's like, and we have these $1,000 phones, and we have
right.
people doing the work that are nowhere near that kind of money. So why is it that much of a discrepancy between
Right.
like the person who's actually putting it together and the resources you're paying to put together metals and stuff, what you're paying the miners to get those metals? It's like it becomes a controversy. People want to get into politics and they start yelling at you if you say, "Well, capitalism is the best thing." It's like, okay, yeah, it's a good system, but you gotta like look at it fairly and look at where it causes problems. And if you start getting into humanitarianism, you're going to start to question why is it set up that way. I would
Yeah.
think you're going to start to say, well, it doesn't seem moral in some cases to do what you're doing. And then people was like, whoa, you know, it's moral to make money. You get this kind of Calvinistic point of view. Like if to make the money, you're closer to God if you're making money. If you're not,
Right.
if you're poor, you're to blame for being poor. And it seems to be a dynamic where people want to do that and then put all the blame on the people in the position without looking at the structure.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. what you just said is so profound because it's just so true. I mean, uh we're consumers, we're great at that. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm all about working hard and making your way. I'm all about that. But then you have to think at what cost? At what cost? And you hear people say, unfortunately, things because they don't understand, right? Well, they're making a wage that's fair for that country. Well, no, $7 a day, and it's $8 for a gallon of milk. I don't think it's fair. You can't
No.
send your kids to school. You can't buy, and you think school's free. Well, it's not. They have to buy a uniform. They got to pay for their books. They pay for tests. They've got to have pencils. They've got to have shoes, the right shoes. Not, they can't come to school in just anything. Most other countries have uniforms, and if you're making $7 a day, which seems good compared to the people making nothing or $2 a day, well, it's not. It's still not good. It's not a
Yeah,
living wage. It's still not
yeah,
good.
yeah. It's just when you start looking at the way the structure is. It's like from the beginning. I could go. I mean, I'm a sociology, political science major, and we studied, you know, different systems from like feudalism to capitalism to socialism to whatever, and you look at how each system actually truthfully works, and how corporations work, and how industries work. And if you read the history, you'll find out there's a lot of social injustice. There's
Mhm.
a lot of structural things kind of been kind of pushed toward, like, what do you call the robber barons, or the kind of like super rich, and it's not gotten better. It's getting worse in terms of the inequity equation across the planet.
Mhm.
Multiple systems, whether you're in Russia or China or Korea or the US, it's all being tilted toward that top, and then people are being made justifying it from idealism or ideology, or even religion and social constructs. It's a big problem. It takes more than a day to get rid of it. It's something people have to really put into, but it's something you need to read, you need to understand, and not just read blogs that get facts, and actually take social action and make choices. But and I think going and being volunteering, and giving your time and actually going to help people, that's a good way to do it. And I think also this thinking, and critically thinking, I think is important for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think, I love it when you see somebody who has a voice who people listen to because they've got some fame from something and stand up and say, well, hey, I've got a company making clothes, but we're not going to do it that way. Or what Mark Cuban
Yeah,
is doing right
more
now with
fair.
pharmaceuticals, right? But it's like we've also put these labels on each other, these political labels, and we think that, oh gosh, if you're a Republican, you can't be for that. If you're a Democrat, you can't be for that. And it's like everybody
Yeah.
needs to take a step back and go
Well,
skip the label.
human being.
We're a human
Like,
being.
well, that's what I
Exactly.
think. The thing about Haiti is people going to it's a nation, right? So that's what, and you said, oh, for that country, it's okay. That's where you're not being like, you be a global citizen. Go beyond your border and think about what's just as a human being on the planet. And you're on planet Earth, and there's all these resources, and you're saying this person can have this much, and this person can have that much. And it's really like down to that. It's like, is that fair? And
Right.
start thinking about it beyond the boundaries they want you to stay in lanes. And not any particular person, but maybe there's certain people in certain class positions that may want you regardless of their political position. It's kind of like their class position.
Mm.
It's pushing people into certain zones. It's kind of like the balance of power. And why are certain people losing and some people are winning? And you need to make it more fair. And then you'll get labeled when you try to say that, because then they'll try to put you in a box and say, no, I'm a human being, and I think people should be able to live a just life, live a fair life. And I'm not,
Yeah.
You don't have to be called you're a commie, you're so
Right.
yeah, so yeah, there's something like, "Oh, I don't like that." You could just say from a humanitarian point of view, don't you think that $7 a day doesn't make a lot of sense to me? So,
Right. Right. When you fairness, that word sometimes screws up people's minds, right? Well, life isn't fair, fair. Well, it's about what's right. It's
yeah,
about what's right. And if you go somewhere and you meet, like sometimes you hear poverty and laziness put in the same sentence, and that's
yeah,
not what it's about.
they tend to
And
be
I
working
mean,
harder than anybody.
exactly. The jobs that other people won't do, for goodness sake. But in Haiti, in particular, it's lack of opportunity. There's only so many jobs. So people will work for $7 a day because that's the only job that's available. And they're happy to have a $7 a day job because it's that or nothing. And uh, not because it's a great job, not because they're well taken care of, not because they're making enough money for their family, but they're making a little bit of money to be able to eat.
But
Well,
some
we're
people do what they're able to they're kind of pigeonholed and they can't get beyond it. Like my great grandfather was a coal miner. Coal miners didn't make a lot of money, right? They worked crazy hard and it was super dangerous. My
Mhm,
my my grandfather was in multiple mine explosions. Part of the years got burned off. He was a farmer. He learned how to, because he was in the coal mine. He learned how to be an electrician, a carpenter, a plumber, and he built his own house. And he was self reliant because he took the skills he got out of that, and he didn't hardly have any education. He taught himself, right? Because back in the day when he was doing stuff, they didn't want to give him good education. But he went and did what he needed to do, and he had 9 kids. And my mom, came out of that life, and we, in West Virginia, Morgantown, West Virginia, and like we understand that kind of Appalachian poverty, because the people were working very hard, super hard, and they weren't like they like, oh, they're poor because they're lazy. There's no way a coal miner's lazy.
right, right. Yeah, it's not about laziness, it's about opportunity, it's about what you're given, unfortunately, and so it's not about communism where we're gonna necessarily just put everything in a pot. I mean, I don't see that happening in my lifetime where we put
Yeah,
everything in a pot and, dole stuff out evenly, but there has to be some something that levels something a little bit. I mean,
we try to get people into make them micro business owners. Make people like own like some capability, something they can be their own entrepreneur at a micro this kind of micro level where people like sell their own products that they create or services or whatever. They get more in charge of their money and don't have somebody kind of top down controlling everything and taking all the money. And then that way they're kind of using capitalism, but being more productive for their own self. Being able to educate themselves, get loans, be able to have a business, sell products, put them on the net, get money you know, but if we get in
Mhm.
a way that you wouldn't think you could do, but if it's being done in Africa and South Central America and all over the place, wherever it can be done, people are trying to push
Right.
that.
Yeah, it happens in Haiti as well. And so that's a wonderful thing. There's several organizations that are doing that, and that's one thing. But I think we just need to get back to love and
Yeah,
what love really is. And love is not putting labels on people. Love is recognizing people as individuals. And just because they're born in a different country, it doesn't make them less of an individual. Because somebody's born in a certain family, a certain country, it doesn't make them more of an individual. We're all equal. We all have our feet on the same ground, but we don't all walk in each other's shoes. And so recognizing the beauty in the differences, the uniqueness, and allowing for different opinions, allowing people to be who they believe they're created to be, instead of criticizing. With love, there's no judgment, there's no room for criticism, there's no room for racism or ageism or any kind of ism. It's about individuals, which is what you started out with. It's about relationship. It's about the people in your family, the people around you, whoever. But it's about people. And that's where where you should be putting your stock, is in your relationship. So that's the worthwhile stuff. That's the good stuff in life.
So, what surprised you the most about love when you were doing your analysis, like for the book? Um, what was the most surprising thing about it that you found that maybe you didn't think you didn't realize?
Well, it's way different than I thought it was. I thought I knew love. I thought I understood more about love than it turns out that I did. And there's all these myths that we perpetrate around love that are not love. We say things that love is this or love is that, and that are not true. And first of all, love is not an emotion or a feeling. It's like if you watch a scary movie, that night you hear every bump and you hear every creak, right? Because you've watched the scary movie and you're afraid. But you don't live in that fear. That goes away. You don't live in it, but you live in love. You don't hang love up when you get home. You don't put it in the closet or at work. Love is all encompassing. Love is who you are. How you decide
Hmm.
to live that and walk it out is up to you. But love is your being. It's not a feeling. It's not an emotion. It is so much more than that. And we like to put a number to it, or we like to say things like love's a two-way street, right? You hear that a lot. Love's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. Love is a one-way street. Love is on you, period. If I give
Mm,
you money and you give me a pair of jeans, that's a transaction. If I give you love to get love, that's a transaction. That's not love. Love is not a transaction. Love is
mhm.
solely completely on you. If you give love expecting love in return, you're going to
Probably
be,
not gonna happen. It's not
yeah,
gonna happen.
I mean, you're going to be lonely. You're going to have heartache, whatever. That doesn't work out. That's why a lot of relationships are in trouble or are unmet expectations. Well, with love, there's no expectation. You just
It
love.
just is.
That's all
Just
you
is.
have to do.
That's the one thing as a songwriter, I was playing with the idea where I just came up with this thing where the people talk about falling in love, right? And I looked at it as a poet and I said, well, if you're falling, that already sounds codependent, right? Because why are you falling? So I came up with this idea, ascending into love. I actually made an album called Ascending into Darling Mode. And the idea was these two characters were going to not be in a codependent relationship, but they were being in this relationship that was uplifting, spiritual, and ascendant. So they were both parallel going upwards, going to into positivity, rather than one of them being pining or one of them like, oh, I'm not getting enough or not. It was a different type. It's an idealistic point of view, but it is an idea that you're not expecting anything. You're just both compatible. You're going in the right direction.
Right, right. Yeah, I love that. I really like that because, yeah, falling in love would also then mean you fall out of it, but you don't because
Yeah.
you're still there. You still have love, and there's not
Yeah.
like just a finite amount of it. It's not like you've got a bucket of it, and after you use the bucket, it's gone. You have as much love as you want to have. It keeps coming, and love is special in that it does come back to you. I mean, it's special that way, but you don't give it to get it. I early in my marriage, I got married when I was 18, and because I fell head over heels in love with this gorgeous man and couldn't wait to spend the rest of my life with him. And so I was early married, very mature, I'm sure, 18-year-old. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do something special for my husband. And so I cleaned the apartment, it was spotless. I made his favorite dinner. He loved lasagna. I made lasagna. He loved German chocolate cake. I made a German chocolate cake from scratch. And I just did put candles on the table, just made it beautiful. And then I put on something a little sexy, to greet him at the door. And so he came home and opened the door and acted like it was any other day. He didn't say anything. He didn't say anything about how I looked, about how the apartment looked, nothing. And then we sit down to eat, and he said nothing about the food that I slaved over. Nothing. My dog just
Oh,
came in. He said nothing about the food. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. I worked so hard on this food and you're saying nothing. Like, what are you thinking? And then I got angrier and angrier because he's saying nothing. So by the time dessert came, I practically threw it at him. And he's like, "Oh, is something wrong?" I'm like, "Yes, something's wrong. What do you mean is something wrong? Yes, you're look at what I did and you're saying nothing. You got to be kidding me." And he said, "Wait a minute." He said, "First of all, I can't read your mind." He said, "Secondly, I've done nothing wrong. It's your expectations that got you in trouble." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. You're my husband, not my dad. Don't be trying to teach me a lesson. My expectations. What are you talking about?" And I got up and I went to the bedroom. I slammed the door and I thought, "Who is this guy? My expectations. He's blaming me for his behavior. He's blaming me." And then I went, "Oh, my expectations. He's right. He's right. He didn't do anything wrong. He can't read my mind. It's amazing. But he never could read. In 29 years of marriage, he couldn't read my mind." And so if you don't express your expectations,
Yeah,
you're going to be let
communication.
down, right?
I think the biggest problem is people have like this idealized version of what they think romance and love should be. And
Mhm.
they expect their partner to kind of automatically, through telepathy, know that. And then
Exactly.
they get like you said, they get ticked off when they don't get it, and they expected they didn't have to tell you, because everybody
Yeah.
has this idea that you have your soulmate and they should just really understand without me even saying it. They should get it. And maybe that happens, but really you have to talk. People talk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as a songwriter, we kinda dive into the dysfunction that usually the negative things that happen that, like, drive what we write about, and that's why you hear all these, like, lovelorn songs, all these romantic songs are kinda sad because everybody runs into that. And it's usually
Mhm.
because bad communication causes that event that makes you write something like that because you go back and say, "Yeah, I really didn't tell them what I was thinking. I thought that they understood." And it's usually that miscommunication that causes all these problems, and it's like goes from a micro level to like macro level. It is like like within your individual relationships until societal and group relationships because people don't talk. They expect that you automatically know
Yeah.
what they want.
Yeah. Right, right, and then we go to the movies. We go see The Notebook, Nicholas Sparks movie, and he's so romantic, and they go on the boat, and we all, we want that moment because it's so special, and we just think that being a man, it's the man in the relationship that should create this romance, and when they
Mhm.
don't, we're mad, like, why does she get that guy? Down the street, the romantic guy. Well, my husband was not romantic at all. He was not romantic, and he didn't give a lot of compliments. And he always said it was because he was left-handed. I don't think being left-handed has anything to do with it, but romance did not come natural to him, and
Yeah,
I needed romance. I needed it. And it
yeah,
took me a while to figure out, well, then I need to create it. And it's okay to be the woman and create it,
initiate.
and
Yeah, because
yeah.
that was always a problem when I was talking to some other guests we had that was talking about a relationship coach and basically saying that a lot of women think the man always has to initiate, and then they're sitting there waiting, and it's probably never gonna happen because, men, they don't know how to do that. They really don't. They're not gonna do the Don Juan thing because they don't really know how to do it, right? And so, like, you're always gonna get disappointed because they probably aren't gonna do it. You might have to talk and teach them about what you want, and
Mhm.
and that is usually, "Oh, well, I don't why should I have to do that?" Well, if you want what you want, you probably have to talk it out because it's not something that's, present in their mind. So
Right.
if you want that to happen, then it's probably something that you're gonna have to work on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'd get mad sometimes because we get all dressed up for a wedding or whatever it is we're going to, and we just expect our husbands to say, "Oh gosh, don't you look great, baby? You look so hot," whatever. We don't we get mad if we have to say, "Well, how do I look?" We don't
Yeah,
wanna have to say that. We want them to just say it. Well, they might be thinking about the football game they were just watching as they were waiting for you for 3 hours to get ready, or, who knows
yeah,
what's going
yeah.
through anybody's mind. We don't know. And,
It's like not
yeah,
it's
and I
not a
think
comfort.
too, Yeah, I think like if you get all dialed up and your husband's like, "Oh, baby, man, you look so great." Then how does he think you look otherwise? Maybe it's okay that he's not saying it because maybe he thinks you always look great and you just happen to have a different dress on, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. It's just communication is very difficult and expectations. Like if people read romance novels, you see a Humphrey Bogart movie with Ingrid Bergman, and you see all these heavy romantic scenes. It's like, whoa, like, but the world ain't like that. If you want it to be like that, you have to work at making it like that, right? Because it's not just going to happen by it says osmosis. Just going to happen. Like you have to actually connect. I mean, maybe there's a 1% scenario where people actually are so in tune that they just fall into like that. But a lot of times it's like you have to, when I've talked to relationship coaches, they say, yeah, you have to work at it. It's not going to just magically happen like in the movies or in the novels. It's like it's something that is you know work.
Right, right. Well, you fall in love with somebody and or whatever, you ascend with somebody and your love grows. And so then you decide you want to spend the rest of your life together. So you walk down an aisle and you say, I do. And then as soon as the honeymoon's over, he's putting his dirty underwear on the bathroom floor. And all of a sudden you're wondering why you married the guy.
Yeah.
Well, he's not his action. You fell in love with a man for who he is. You fell in love with a woman for who she is. You love people for who they are, not the things they do. So
Hmm.
putting underwear on the floor is not who he is. It's just something that he did. So that
Yeah.
you need to separate the actual love of the human being, the actual love of the person with some of the things that may be annoying to you and not put them in the same
Yeah.
category and think you're losing your love if you get upset if he does something.
Well, I think it's like everybody's habits or their behavior. Hey, like the people need to be present. Like the men need to understand. Like just throwing, like it's not really romantic if you're just gonna throw your underwear around and expect her to pick it up and leave the kitchen a mess, never clean it up, and think like she's gonna be a maid. Is like that you if that's what you think it should be, you're probably not gonna get a good reaction. Maybe you have to think about what you're doing. Like this is the modern world. Like I don't think she wants to be your maid. I don't think you should just be disrespecting your wife that way. You should show that, yeah, I'm going to learn to clean up. I'm going to learn to do the laundry. I'm not going to throw my stuff around. I'm going to figure out how to clean my own laundry. It, you know, that kind of thing will show at least some respect. And it really is like it's just the communication again. It's like
Right.
realizing what love is not just like top down. I'm your husband. You're going to do this because you're my wife. Yeah, if you want to run the old school, I don't know if it's going to work with a lot of people anymore.
Yeah. No, I
you know,
don't think so either. Yeah, and right, you got to communicate. So whoever in whatever relationship, if you're thinking you're taking on too much or whatever, just talk about it. But it's interesting because with love, real love, what love really is, you want to do stuff for people, right?
yeah,
You want to be kind and you want to do stuff because of love. Love, you love somebody, you want to do things for them. And and that's okay. The very first month was love is patient, right? I first month that I'm working on this love is patient in Haiti. And it's hard to be patient in Port-au-Prince, in a city with 2 million people and infrastructure for 40,000. And driving through the streets is nearly impossible. And it takes you an hour to go 4 miles. I mean, it's crazy. And so I thought I knew this will be easy. Love is patient. We know what patience is. We're not honking our horn if we're stuck in traffic, whatever. But love that is patient is entirely different than that. And if all you know is this much about the truth about love, it will change your life. And it is this that love that is patient, love who you're with. I'm not just talking couples, I'm talking any humanity, any human being. Love who you're with. You recognize that this moment is the most important moment of your life. What's in the past is in the past, and what's in the future is yet to come. This is the most important moment of your life. And I got to tell you, for me to be totally in tune and to be fully present, it was not easy. Like I had to
Yeah.
practice and practice and practice this. It was so easy for me to be in conversation and think about a meeting I had later, who had to get to soccer practice, what I had to pick up from the grocery store on the way home, and think that I'm completely and fully engaged at the same time. And nobody can do that. Science says that nobody
Mhm.
can do that. And so when I practiced this and stopped thinking ahead or stopped even thinking about my rebuttal, what I was going to say next, stopped assuming what was being said based on some label that I put on somebody, but instead actually listened, I heard things I never would have heard before. When you actually listen, you might not even have to do any talking. When you're actually hearing, one thing that happens is you realize we've got a lot more in common than not. And it is love that is patient, is being completely in the moment. And it's a game changer. It was a game changer in my life. I think it's a game changer for anyone who's not loving that way now.
I think it's hard because a lot of people have like they just keep on delving into their past, and right, and the past is always there, and then at the same time, they have like resentments and they didn't bring it up, and it's kind of undercover, and, and they're not going to resolve those resentments. They haven't resolved the past. They're still living in the past. They haven't gone beyond it, and then at the same time, they might be thinking about like the future. And so when you're with somebody paying attention, you said, to what's actually being said, they're just, thinking about the response and not without actually listening to the words. And so then you get all this like disconnect. It's like if you get these totally disconnects because you're not present, you're letting the past like control your thinking and you're not listening because you're thinking about a future response and you're not staying in the moment. So yeah, you got definitely going to be crossing the lines and you're probably not gonna be
Right.
really, having a good time.
Yeah, no, no, I think you kinda set yourself up for failure when you do that. Like, one of the things in the poem is love doesn't keep record of wrongs, which that's an interesting one, right? Like, I
Yeah.
thought, gosh, what could that even mean? That month that I was working on it, that was a hard one because I thought, well, you might forgive things that happen, but you don't forget. It's not like you forgive somebody and your memory of whatever just goes away. And so it took me a bit to figure out what it meant. That month I had this man from the US call and ask if I'd show him this water project I was working on. And so I met these 8 men flew over to Haiti. And then I brought 2 Haitian friends who also happen to be men with us to go work on this water project so that they could see if they wanted to get involved. And we got to where we were staying, and it was a little tiny building with 2 rooms. And each room had 4 twin-sized beds. 8 American men, 2 Haitian men, me. But we brought a couple cots and an air mattress, and there was some room in the room. So I'm thinking we're okay, whatever. It's Haiti, you make do. Well, he called me over. He said, Kim, can I talk to you? I'm like, sure. And he said, did you see the rooms? And I'm thinking, buddy, there's nothing else to see. This is a little place. And then I went, oh, he's asking me because he thinks he's going to think I want my own room. So I'll say, well, it's okay. I'll sleep
Mhm.
outside. And he'll say, oh, no, no, no. If anybody should sleep inside, it should be you. And I'll say, well, I don't care if there's other people in the room. And he'll say, good, because there's only so much space. So I said, well, it's okay. I'll sleep outside. And he said, oh, good, good. Because we've got men on this trip that would not be happy with a woman in their room. And I'm thinking, wow, I just put my foot in my mouth. So I look around, I had to figure it out because I said I would. And there was a piece of plywood kind of held up by these 2 wooden structures. And I thought, well, if I put the air mattress underneath there, at least I won't get rained on if it rains. And so the first night I went to bed, I was scared to death because there are snakes and there are tarantulas and chupacabras or whatever is lurking in the
Yeah,
bushes of
like the
Haiti.
best place to be outside.
No, right. And so I go to bed. The air mattress held air for about an hour. And then
Oh,
I was laying on gravel. And it was so loud. Dogs were barking, horns were honking. Finally, that died down sometime after midnight, and then voodoo drums started in the distance. That went for a couple hours. Finally, I was able to get some sleep. Well, the first night came and went. Everything was fine. Second night, same thing. I'm on the gravel, the dogs, the horns, the voodoo drums. Finally, I'm asleep. But I woke up because it was something on my leg. And I thought, oh my gosh, does Haiti have the anti-venom to whatever it is that is about to poison me? Or can I get airlifted to Miami in time to save my leg? What is going to happen? And so I slowly lifted my head and I slowly opened my eyes. And it was a chicken. There was a dang chicken on my leg. And I didn't know whether to be happy because it wasn't something worse, or mad because it woke me up from the little bit of sleep I was getting. So the third night came and went, no problem. Fourth night, same thing, the gravel, the dogs, the horns, the voodoo drums. Again, finally I'm sleeping. But again, I woke up because it was something on my leg. I was scared to death. I had no idea what it could be. It didn't feel good. I didn't know what I was going to look up to. And so again, I slowly lifted my head and I slowly opened my eyes. And again, it was the dang chicken. And again, I didn't know whether to be mad or happy. But that night we had chicken for dinner. So the fifth night came and went without a problem. But I had to say, but I got to say, I was bitter. I was angry. I thought, who do these guys think they are? I'm all about equality, but I am a human being, for goodness sake.
Yeah, you would have thought they would have said, like, if somebody would have stepped up as, being a gentleman and say, oh, of course, like, I'll go outside and let you be inside. Instead, they had this, kind of bad behavior that, oh, yeah, we don't want you in the room.
Exactly.
Like,
And
really?
I know. So, I was mad. I'm thinking, who do these guys think they are? I hope my sons wouldn't treat a woman like this. And I was bitter. And then I thought, well, they don't know I'm mad, so bitterness is only going to hurt me. And I did offer to sleep outside, for goodness sake, but even so, but I was mad. And then I thought, oh, I'm working on love doesn't keep a record of wrongs. And now I finally understand what that means. So love that doesn't keep record of wrongs changes the narrative. We get to pick our reaction to things. We get to choose the narrative. We get to choose the tone of the story. And that's what love that doesn't keep a record of wrongs does. So instead of these rotten guys that did this horrible thing to me, now it's just kind of this funny story, this thing I lived through. I could literally sleep anywhere in the world and be perfectly fine. And so the tone of the story changed. And that is love that doesn't keep record of wrongs. Is you pick how the stories go. We get to choose how we react to everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, people can be in a traffic jam, and the same traffic jam, two cars next to each other. And one guy's honking his horn and yelling out the window, and his blood pressure's rising and he's all upset and things are bad and he's mad that he's in this traffic jam. And then the very next car could be somebody going, oh, you know what? I like that podcast. I'm going to just chill and listen because we're not moving. There's nothing I can do about it, whatever. And his blood pressure lowers, maybe even. It's the same situation, but different reactions. And we get to pick, we get to choose the reaction. Nobody should choose that for us. We get to choose how we react.
The individuals have to just, determine, like, you outside forces aren't responsible for your happiness. It's how you perceive the world, whether or not you're going to have a pessimistic, antagonistic kind of point of view where everything's jumping to a crisis, or whether you're kind of trying to live in the universe, kind of like, I'm a Buddhist, so we try to do meditation and calming and breathing and chanting, so that we kind of understand, like, a lot of what happens is what we do. And if you understand that, then you can kind of do emotional and kinetic, like, judo with the world, and let things roll off of you and not go and be aggressive. You can actually turn energy and kind of do this kind of judo type of thing. It's like a psychic judo, and you're taking that bad force and you're moving it and making it more positive. You don't get affected by it. And so it's a different way of thinking than if you're in this kind of resentful kind of thing. And we get people that are just living on their resentments and living on their anger and living on their frustration, jumping to like 100, from 0 to 100 for what? Because somebody cut you off, or somebody didn't give you the right look, and then you're ready to what, kill a person. It's like people got to like start taking some kind of a love approach, which I
Yeah,
like the way you look at it is a different way, and it's always interesting to find different aesthetics in terms of how we can deal with the same problem.
right, right. Yeah, I love that. I love the way Buddhists look at it for sure because it's up to you. And if you do that, if you love that way and not keep a record of wrongs, change the tone, pick the right narrative. Then when you're in an argument, you're not going to get all heightened and go, and by the way, last week and then 2 years ago you did this. And right. I mean, that stuff
Yeah,
can stay in the past where it belongs. That stuff doesn't have to get rehashed every time you disagree about who's going to do the dishes, for goodness sake. I mean, that stuff can stay where it's supposed to and move ahead, move ahead. We all make mistakes and we all say things we regret, we all do things we regret, but you got to forgive yourself and forgive other people and do the judo that you talked about. That's what you need to do and live happily,
yeah.
choose your own
But
happiness.
yeah, look at your you have to look in the mirror and you gotta love yourself, 'cause a lot of people who are causing a lot of trouble are people who are kinda, like, damaged because they don't love themselves, and then they're taking it out on external forces because they haven't resolved their own inner conflict. They haven't resolved their own inner child conflicts, or they're still stuck there, and then they keep on repeating the same things because they're not going forward. And so
Mhm.
a lot of people, like, the first love you always hear about, like, the greatest love. Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, it's yourself. You gotta love yourself before you can love anybody else.
It's
And
so
then once,
true.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
seems like cliche, but it's not.
Yeah, I know, but it's so true. I think sometimes like the Mona Lisa, if it went up for sale, I don't even know how many millions and millions of dollars, right? It would get. I don't even know. Well, because it's one of a kind. It's a one of a kind masterpiece. And so are you. So are you. There's nobody that has ever been exactly like you. There never will be anybody exactly like you. There's nobody that has walked exactly in your shoes and on this earth in your shoes. Nobody. You are a one of a kind masterpiece. So embrace that and look at that as a wonderful thing. It's good we don't all look alike. It's good we don't all act alike. It's good that there's different opinions. It's good that people are able to share things. Those are good things. Those aren't negative things. And so you should look in the mirror and go, "Wow, I am a one of a kind masterpiece." There's nobody like you. You're the Mona Lisa. You're more valuable than the Mona Lisa and value who you are and be true to yourself. And like you said, love yourself first so you can love other people.
Because that's when you can get the confidence that, you know, a lot of people, at least in my business, people like to clone other people's work because it's successful. But as a
Mm,
producer, I always tell people, like, I want to hear your original demo. I don't want you to try to sound like somebody else. I want you to show me who you sound like. And as a producer, I don't want to turn you into whoever's in the top 10. I want to actually make you sound like the best version of yourself. So
mm,
I'll fix your vocals, I'll make things snappier, but I'm going to take what you did as a demo and it's going to be a better version of what you already did by just increasing the quality of what you are doing so that you can be uniquely you, because there's too many people who are, Taylor Swift is out there. You don't need another Taylor Swift because she's already there, right? Be who you are.
I like that. I like that. I mean, that goes perfectly with it. Yes, absolutely. And while you are who you are, allow other people to be who they are. You're not them. You don't control other people. Let people be who they believe they're created to be. Let other people be who they are. It's such a free, peaceful way to live when you just love and not try to fix people and not criticize and not think somehow you're better than, but love people for the individuals that they are. And like you as a producer, the musician, love the musician for who they really are. Be true to yourself.
Well, I think this has been a really great conversation because I'm starting to piece things together, in life, because I've been meeting all these different types of life coaches and mentors and authors. And there's a recurring theme that I keep on hearing about people, being their authentic self, and learning how to love. And I think the way you express it through love is a different vision. And I like bringing this to my audience, that they get to hear all these different points of view, and everybody's uniquely taking on the same issues in the life, because a lot of people have all these problems, and it's really because a lack of self-confidence, lack of love, lack of understanding, and more people that can talk about it and express themselves, so you can, or the universal truths come out. I think it's real important. So I would like everybody to make sure you click on the link to www.kimsorrelle.com. You can see the /copy of love challenge, and that's going to be clickable. But we are at the close of our program tonight. I thank you for being on the program. We do love to have different people's opinions, and your opinion has been awesome.
Well, thank you so much. I've so enjoyed being with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, and good night. And everybody, again, make sure you do click on the link. We do encourage everybody to check out the content from the people that we talk to, and that will be clickable when we're fully published. In the different places you listen or watch podcasts, do check this out. Thank you very much for being on the show.